Circuses have always been places that fuse surreal wonder with the vivid nightmare-scapes hiding in the back of every child's subconscious. Nothing captures this better than old circus photos. These images reveal a world where enigma still clung to the fringes of the entertainment scene, long before reality shows chased sword swallowers and polished freak shows wandered the nation. So, stay tuned as we explore the 15 amazing circus freaks that actually existed. Number 15. Hop the Frog Boy. Samuel Parks was born in 1874 with osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a rare genetic disorder notorious for causing extremely fragile bones. While mild cases exist, severe forms like this involve countless fractures, scoliosis, brittle teeth, short stature, and even weakened muscles and skin. For Parks, this meant constant breaks and severely deformed limbs. He made his public debut at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair as a medical exhibit. Realizing he could support his struggling family, he committed to sideshows full-time. He embraced his condition, crawling on all fours and performing as a frog. Crowds were told he had the limbs of a bullfrog and the face of a man. Parks married twice, though tragedy followed him. His first wife died during childbirth, along with their second child. Their firstborn son survived and was healthy. Later, Parks remarried a fellow performer called the Connecticut Midget, and together they briefly toured as the world's strangest couple. Through hardship, Parks transformed survival into spectacle. Number 14. Alfredo Codona. Alfredo was arguably the finest trapeze artist to ever soar through a circus tent. Even the famed aerialist Art Concello admired him. Codona was the first to master the triple somersault. Born October 7, 1893, in Sonora, Mexico, Alfredo hailed from an Italian circus dynasty. His father, a trapeze performer and circus owner in southern Mexico, and his mother, Hortense Buisley, also a flyer, raised him among fellow performers. The family, Alfredo, his parents, brother Abelardo, and sister Victoria, became known as the Flying Codonas. In 1917, Alfredo married Clara Curtin, a fellow aerialist. They divorced in 1927. In 1928, he met Lillian Leitzel, Ringling Brothers' star aerialist. They wed that same year. Their relationship was volatile, but deeply affectionate. While performing in Berlin in 1931, Alfredo learned Lillian had fallen during a show in Copenhagen. She died 2 days later. Alfredo later married Vera Bruce, but after an injury ended his career and a failing marriage, he fatally shot Vera and himself in 1937. Like for real. Number 13. The Spotted Negro Boy. George Alexander Grattan was born in 1808 on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. His parents were African slaves working on a plantation owned by Mr. Alexander, who was shocked by the boy's appearance. George had piebaldism, a rare genetic disorder that creates patches of pale skin, especially across the face and torso. Sensing an opportunity, Alexander handed the boy to Grattan, the plantation overseer, who gave him his name. George was displayed as an infant across the island, with spectators paying $1 to glimpse him. At just 15 months old, he was shipped to England and sold to a man named Richardson for 1,000 guineas, around $132,000 today. He became famous as the beautiful Spotted Negro Boy, admired for his rare look and cheerful demeanor. Baptized in 1810, George performed up to 12 hours daily, an exhausting pace. Tragically, it took its toll. He died young, only 4 years old, and was buried in Buckinghamshire by Richardson in a private tomb. What do you think about him? Let us know. Number 12. Lothar Geyer. Lothar was born in 1935 in Suhl, which is in Germany. In 1952, he arrived in the U.S. with Fritz Furcht's Freelanis bicycle troupe to perform with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. The ensemble included 7 performers, 5 men and 2 women, executing intricate stunts on bicycles. Their finale involved all 7 riding a single bike. When one of the troupe's female members suddenly left, they contacted Digger Pugh, a known talent agent for circuses and films. Pugh sent Jill Goading, born April 19, 1945, in Old Church, Essex, England. On August 19, 1963, Lothar and Jill married. While performing with the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus, Geyer obtained Joe Galasso's finger stand apparatus and began creating a solo balancing act. His one-finger stand act premiered with Clyde Beatty, featuring Geyer in a tuxedo and Jill in formal gowns. Their marriage ended on August 29, 1978. Lothar later married Charlene Susan Culbreth and launched a fishing charter business in Bradenton, Florida. Number 11. Abe Goldstein. Abe was born in Ohio. By age 10, he discovered a talent for clowning. While selling newspapers in Cincinnati, Abe boosted his sales by performing acrobatics and comedy stunts on the street. At 16, Abe joined the U.S. Army during World War I, where he lost an eye. He wore a glass prosthetic for the rest of his life and often joked about it. Goldstein appeared as an extra in several Mack Sennett Keystone Cops films, likely the birthplace of his clown persona, Corky the Comic Cop. He also had roles in Toby Tyler and the Fat Man. He became widely recognized as the Clown Cop, donning an oversized police coat, brass buttons, a constable helmet, and a giant nightstick. Abe also performed a comedy dog act with Teddy, who would fake death and then leap up to nip Abe's rear. He performed into his 90s. His wife, Catherine, passed in 1985. Abe died February 15, 1990, in Los Angeles at age 94. Now let's head over to number 10, Emmett Bahano. Now this is just amazing. Emmett, also known as the alligator-skinned man, was born in Florida with ichthyosis, a rare condition that left his skin thick, cracked, and scaly. Only his hands and face stayed smooth, giving him a hauntingly distinctive appearance. Emmett joined the sideshow circuit, where he met Priscilla, the monkey girl, who performed under the Lothar banner. Their bond formed quickly, and they married in 1938. Together, they built a shared life on stage and off. They had a daughter who tragically died of pneumonia soon after birth. Later, they adopted a son named Tony and continued performing as the world's strangest married couple. The pair toured widely, managed their own act, and became beloved figures in circus lore. Their marriage lasted an extraordinary 57 years until Emmett's death on May 14, 1995. Priscilla followed on February 5, 2001. Emmett had been adopted by Johnny Bahano after losing his biological father. Together, he and Priscilla embodied perseverance through spectacle. Number 9. The Wild Men of Borneo. Barnum's fascination with dwarf performers endured, but with a twist. He hired brothers Hiram and Barney Davis, who were mentally disabled and weighed just 45 pounds apiece. Incredibly, they could each lift up to 300 pounds. Their signature act? Hoisting audience members. Barnum rebranded them as Wino and Plutonor, billing them as the Wild Men of Borneo. He concocted a story claiming they were captured from Borneo's jungles where supposedly all natives resembled them. The public eagerly bought the illusion. At Barnum's New American Museum in New York, their act generated over $200,000, a fortune in the 1800s, worth millions today. As they aged, both brothers began to lose their vision. Thankfully, they were well cared for into their 90s. Even after their deaths, the ruse persisted. When Plutonor died, newspapers still reported it as if he truly had been a wild man from Borneo, never exposing their origins or identities. Number 8. Mechanical Men. A fast way to make cash in a freak show was hiring someone to pose as a robot or mechanical human. One popular act from the early 1900s was called No Name. Mr. No-Name was introduced as a humanoid figure whose arms, head, and stance mimicked the motions of a well-dressed gentleman. Electrical wires were attached to him, and a woman, likely controlling the mechanism, joined him on stage. He'd walk and move rigidly, never breaking his blank expression. The manager even offered $100 to any woman who could make him smile. In a publicity stunt, Mr. No-Name was taken to Washington, D.C., where he appeared on the steps of the Treasury Building during a war savings stamp rally. There, it, as the press called him, dramatically tumbled down the stairs, but emerged completely unharmed. Onlookers were stunned. If he was a man, it was miraculous. If he was a machine, it was brilliance in motion. Number 7. The Black Scorpion. Known on stage as the Black Scorpion or Lobster Boy, this performer had a rare genetic disorder called ectrodactyly, giving his hands a claw-like appearance. Unlike many sideshow acts of the past, he used his condition not for shock, but for empowerment. In 2008, he joined Coney Island's sideshows by the seashore and was later featured on TLC's Taboo. His act reshaped what a freak show could stand for. Rather than portraying himself as a victim, he embraced his uniqueness with pride, inspiring others facing physical differences. He proved that visibility could be a strength, not a stigma, and that being different carried dignity, not shame. His shows celebrated individuality unapologetically, making him a defiant symbol against societal norms. Beyond spectacle, his work delivered a message. Difference should be embraced, not concealed. The Black Scorpion remains one of the few sideshow artists praised not for shock value, but for transforming how we see strength and identity. He is very rare. Number 6. Pansy Chinery. In the early 1900s, aerial acts thrilled audiences, but few performers matched the boldness of Pansy Chinery, also known by her stage name, Eda Ayana. Pansy was an aerialist who performed high above the crowd, suspended solely by her teeth. Clamped onto a leather strap or steel ring, she twirled and swung in midair, without a safety net and without trained assistance. Her act blended fear and fascination. Audiences gasped as she spun above them, some unable to watch while others couldn't look away. Her entire career rested on nerve and sheer audacity. Little is known about her personal life, but during the World War I-era circuses, she was a news. Her act challenged every notion of what a lady should do in entertainment. She defied expectations and gravity, literally. At a time when most women were told to stay grounded, Pansy soared, setting a precedent for strength, elegance, and risk. Her routine remains one of the boldest aerial feats ever attempted. So how long can you hang on with your teeth? Number 5. Darwin's Missing Link. According to sensational posters, Crow was billed as Darwin's missing link, the supposed bridge between ape and human. She was described as having pouch-like cheeks, a soft tail, full lips, and a body entirely covered in hair. At just 7, she debuted at London's Westminster Aquarium in 1883. Before passing in 1926, she toured with Barnum and Bailey and the Ringling Brothers. The Aquarium, infamous for mixing sideshow acts with scandal, marketed her as both exotic and erotic. Scientific claims around her were entirely fabricated, but they mesmerized audiences. In 1883, she was displayed at Trinity College, Dublin, where physicians were asked to confirm she came from a family with similar traits. But Crow was far from a primitive oddity. By her teenage years, she was well-educated, fluent in 5 languages, literate, and trained in piano. Though presented as a half-simian marvel, she was an intelligent, cultured young woman, cleverly navigating a world that tried to define her by spectacle. Now, let's move to Number 4. Frank and Bernice Dean. Frank was born in 1908 in San Jose to Mommy, blasé, and Benjamin Dean, a professional carpenter. He toured with circuses, Wild West shows, and rodeos, performing Western arts, whip tricks, rope spinning, knife throwing, and more. He also appeared on the TV show You Asked For It and wrote multiple books on Western performance. While touring Japan, Frank met fellow entertainer Bernice Hopp. They married on April 26, 1935, during the same tour. Frank earned a Guinness World Record in 1939 by cracking the world's longest whip, an 80-footer, at the North Dakota State Fair. Bernice performed rolla bola, juggling, trick riding, and assisted Frank during his routines. A fan favorite involved Frank spinning a rope with his head, feigning drunkenness while doing the cowboy's wedding ring. In another act, he stood on his head in a bucket and lassoed a galloping horse. He also used his whip to snatch flowers from a spinning parasol, and even Bernice's skirt. Frank was a masterful showman. Number 3. Prince Randian. Prince Randian was born in Guyana, South America, though his given name was never revealed. He had tetra amelia syndrome, meaning he was born without arms or legs. At 18, he immigrated to the U.S. and began performing under P.T. Barnum. His signature act was rolling and lighting cigarettes with only his lips. He could also write using just his mouth. At times, showmen dressed him as a snake, a caterpillar, or even a potato. In 1932, he appeared in the cult film Freaks, performing his trademark cigarette routine. Despite his condition, Randian was known for his quick wit, which reportedly made him quite popular with women. He married and fathered 5 children. He remained on stage for life. At 63, shortly after one last performance in New York City, he died of a heart attack. To this day, he's remembered as one of the most iconic figures in circus history, not for what he lacked, but for what he achieved in spite of it. Number 2. Pablo Noel. In 1962, Pablo stunned Hamburg audiences with a performance so dangerous it would never pass today's safety standards. His act? Placing his head inside a lion's mouth. No cages, no illusions. That was the core of his show. Just inches from lethal jaws, Noel relied solely on his composure, animal instincts, and raw nerve. Mid-20th century circuses thrived on such spectacles, where the peril itself was the main event. Spectators sat frozen as silence gripped the tent, anticipating either disaster or triumph. Pablo's act blurred the boundary between courage and recklessness, capturing an era when danger sold tickets. For many, the appeal wasn't illusion, it was risk, where one slip meant catastrophe. His routine became legendary, not just for the threat it posed, but for the audacity it took. Pablo Noel is remembered as a performer whose lion act redefined live entertainment through instinct, daring, and unshakable nerve. Number 1. Josephine Clofulia. Josephine was born in Switzerland in 1827 and developed hypertrichosis, a condition that triggered excessive hair growth. By 8, she had already grown a 2-inch beard. Barnum hired her but changed her last name to Clofulia, aiming to stir public debate. Was she truly a bearded woman, or simply a man in disguise? Much to his disappointment, most visitors accepted her as female without much fuss. So in 1853, Barnum staged a scandal. He hired a man named William Charr to sue him for fraud. The case went to court, where Josephine's father, husband, and 3 doctors testified she was biologically female. The stunt worked. Newspapers ran wild with the trial, and curiosity skyrocketed. Crowds packed Barnum's American Museum just to see her live. It's a classic Barnum tactic, using spectacle not just to amuse, but to manipulate the media, and even turn a courtroom into free advertisement. Josephine became one of his most buzz-worthy attractions. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you very soon.